Hi and welcome to TheScore.lk for a weekly roundup of your school's rugby action. It's been a packed weekend. It's been an absolutely fantastic weekend, and it's just the first week, and that's the good news. The bad news is if you're a royalist, then things not looking too good for you, and things looking like they really need to improve for St. Anthony's as well. Those are the two schools that really will be have taken a beating this weekend. But let me tell you what we started with, and that was St. Joseph's versus Kingswood College. That was live on the score. Hope you managed to catch that game as well. It was a brilliant performance by the Josephians to win that one in the end. A last gasp try from Jason Melder, who changed direction beautifully, went one way and then the other way in trying to score the try that won his team the game, and that's how it finished 27 points to 21, despite St. Joseph's trailing by 21 points to 20 in the last couple of minutes of that game. It really was an enthralling encounter, with the Josephians going into an early lead. Two Jason Melder tries. He scored a hat-trick that weekend. Two tries taking them out into a 10-0 lead. But then later on in the game, with the Josephian forwards beginning to tire, with the defences beginning to become a little unstructured, we saw Vijay Singh and KND Pereira for the Kingswood boys really making a difference with their broken field running, and that was what really influenced the game towards the end, and it was what made it 21 points to 20 in favour of Kingswood. Just about 5 minutes left on the clock, actually about 9 minutes left on the clock if I remember right, but St. Joseph's managed to muster their entire reserves, and because it was an early season game, because they weren't feeling the fatigue so much, they managed to get their big forwards back into the 22 for one last effort in trying to win that game, and that's exactly what happened. So St. Joseph's, managing to come into the A division last year, managing to stay in the A division, are now showing that they can be genuine title contenders, if not this year, at least in a couple of years to come. Kingswood College had some outstanding plays. They scored some brilliant tries as well, with KN Pereira scoring the try of the match, I think, the fly half. He had to live off scraps all day because the forwards were really under the cosh at scrum time. St. Joseph's dominated in the scrum, but then were really bad in the line-out. The pressure put on the Sharon Joseph, the hooker for St. Joseph's, by the quick jumping of the number 2 jumper for Kingswood, and that's something that they will really need to improve on. But Kingswood looking like they will cause any team problems. The Kingswood-Isipathana match is really going to be an entertaining one, that I can tell you, as will Kingswood Science and Isipathana Science in the upcoming weeks. Those are going to be games that you have to watch out. So well done St. Joseph's for winning the first match of the season. It wasn't a convincing win, but it was an entertaining win, and everybody who was at the grounds, I'm sure, would have got their money's worth. If you were on TheScore.lk, of course, you would have got your money's worth as well. We move next to the game between Royal College and Science. This was the biggest upset of the weekend, of course. Science, big, strong and fast, and Motilal Jalcharaka, who has been their trainer in the past, was a guy who was very, very insistent on being fit, and that's exactly what the Science College boys are. And with the skill levels at Sri Lanka Schools Rugby, if you are fit and you are strong and you can last the 80 minutes, that's at least 75% of your games won just there. It's when schools are equal on fitness and strength and conditioning and things like that, that skill begins to matter. But with Royal being way ahead, way below par on the physical side of things, it was always going to be a difficult battle. I wasn't at the game, but it looked very much like there was a collision issue for Royal. They kept going back, they kept getting pushed back in the scrums, they kept getting pushed back in every collision that they made, and that's a lack of proper strength and conditioning for them in the preseason. That's something that they won't be able to fix over the course of the week, that's for sure. So Science doing brilliantly well under Rohita Rajapaksa's coaching skills, and it was a game marred by a few fisticuffs later on, but nothing really to write home about, nothing too serious. And it's good to see, of course, rugby is a passionate game, and sometimes players get a little bit overheated, but nothing really to be very concerned about in that game. So a 39-point margin, a 39-point points tally for Science, in fact, and a big margin of victory. Royal would not have been expecting that. We had another game on that day as well. That was St. Anthony's versus St. Peter's for the Rector's Trophy, and there was no real contest in that game because St. Anthony's completely overshadowed by a 43-point blitz by St. Peter's in the first half. They changed a lot of their players around and eventually managed to score only 50-odd points, with a few more points coming in the second half. But that 43 points, a point a minute and more for St. Peter's, really sending the signal out to the rest of the schools that they are going to be the genuine title contenders this time in the 2013 league. So it's going to be a very, very important couple of games, especially St. Joseph, St. Peter's coming up next week. That's going to be an absolute cracker to watch out for. Then on Saturday we moved to the Royal College Sports Complex. Wesley, the newly promoted Wesley, taking on Isipatana in a repeat of what was a knockout trophy final from last year, and it was a really good performance by both teams. I thought Wesley looking brilliant in their counter-attacking play. They showed that they wanted to run it from everywhere. And Terence Henry, if your team is coached by a prop forward and you still want to run it from everywhere, then that shows you really have got your philosophies right. So congratulations to Henry in his first coaching assignment, the national player, former Sierra FC player and national prop forward, also Havelock's captain who won the league last year. He's shown that he's really matured as a rugby brain, and I was really impressed by the way Wesley chose to attack and didn't do too much wrong, except of course try and spurn a kick that they got towards the end of that game when Isipatana were leading for the first time by 23 points to 22. They should have gone for the kick that they had under the post, but somehow they chose to go for the short tap and run. But they were very lucky that they got another penalty from just a few meters further out, which KRD De Silva managed to put over. Now Wesley, if they have a chink in their armour, it's going to be the fact that KRD De Silva wasn't converting a lot of his kicks. He was pulling them wide of the right-hand post for a left-footed kicker. He's got to adjust his technique just a little bit more, and Isipatana wouldn't have even been close in that game if he had put over the few conversions and penalty chances that he had got. So despite having those scoring opportunities, they squandered a lot of them, and that's what Wesley will need to make sure that they do in the upcoming weeks. Also, they have to be a little bit careful of burnout. They seem to be running the ball from everywhere, and that's a great philosophy, but sometimes in this sapping heat, I'm already sweating here, I'm just sitting in front of a camera, but if you're playing 80 minutes of rugby, it can be really dehydrating, and as the season goes along, Wesley might need to rethink their tactics a little bit, maybe opt for the boot a little bit more and attack from positions of strength rather than running the ball out of their 22 every time. But still a brilliant performance, beating the reigning league champions, the defending league champions, Isipatana, and Isipatana also will be disappointed because Hiranta Pereira was the only guy that could do something in that back line, and they were running with no imagination at all. They were showing no angles, they were showing no desire to come in from the wing. Himasha and Taranath on the wings really needed to do a little bit better by coming in and looking for work, but it shows that they don't have very imaginative back play, and maybe Shamli Nawaz, their excellent coach, will be able to call on the services of someone like Bandula or Sajit Mallikarachi, who were brilliant three-quarters for Isipatana in their time, to come and maybe just give the backs a little bit more guidance, because Konga Hawatta, who scored a brilliant try for the Isipatanians, was still not really marshalling his players with any degree of confidence. He needs to add a little bit more structure to that backline play, and if they do that, Isipatana will be a force to be reckoned with. What is good to see for Isipatana though is that they have some big couple of front row forwards who Shamli is using very intelligently as ball carriers, and these guys, if they manage to get quick ball back to their backs, Surya Rachi and Konga Hawatta, the half-back combination, really need to make sure that they have their backs running good angles. They've got a good back three, as do Isipatana, so it will be a very, very interesting prospect if they manage to get those little quirks sorted out, but it's still very early doors for this season, so I'm sure there's a lot of work in progress to be done for all these teams, Isipatana in particular. We had another game the next day. That was Dharmaraja versus Trinity. That was the game up in Kandy. It was an absolute cracker. I hope you caught that one live on the score as well. 34 points all. That's the way that one finished, and there was no quarter asked or given. The Trinitians were very nervous going into this game. Trinity, who thought they'd won the league for a couple of weeks last year after many years of waiting, only to find out that because of the whole Vidyartha issue, they were not the league champions. They were in fact league runners up. They had a point to prove out there, and Ratwata, Lochana Girahagama among the point scorers for Trinity this year, as you would have expected them, because they were very good last year as well. But missing Kanil Selviratna and Thisila Dev in the middle of the field for Trinity, but those holes seem to have been plugged by Aluvihara nicely, and he scored a couple of tries yesterday, which resulted in Trinity managing to draw the game despite trailing 34 points to 29 in the last few moments of that game. Tarindaratwat unfortunately missing the conversion which would have won the game for Trinity, but Dharmaraja also very happy with that result. They went out there wanting to beat their hometown rivals, the Lions. These schools have had a historical rivalry for so long because of their geographical positioning. And it's always great for teams like Dharmaraja to come up and beat the more established rugby playing schools like Trinity, and that's what they wanted to do, and they thought they'd done it until the last moment when Tarindra Ratwata danced down the touchline and managed to score the try to equal the game. So that's the way it finished. That was the opening weekend of the Schools Rugby Championship. So the teams to look out for, I would say, Trinity, Dharmaraja, Science College and St. Peter's on this showing. So we've got St. Peter's heading the points table on TheScore.lk. If you click on that link, you'll be able to find the points table. And we've got Science College coming in at number 2. So those are the two teams that have been promoted to 1 and 2 after the end of this first weekend. But that's going to change. It's going to be topsy-turvy. Look out for teams like Isipatana coming through once they sort out their injury issues and little kinks that they have. Let's not forget that Patana played with 14 players after one of their players was sent off early on, well, not early on, but late on in the first half. They played at least 45 minutes of that game with just 14 players. Kingswood also with discipline issues, having 3 players sent into the sin bin over the course of that game, so playing for 30 minutes with just 14 players. So when they keep their full complement of players on the pitch, they might really be different propositions. St. Joseph's also will be a problem. I think the Peterites for once will sit up and take notice. They've always taken the Joe Pete encounter as somewhat of a foregone conclusion in the recent past, but that's not going to happen this time. They are definitely going to sit up and watch out for Jason Milner, Stefan Gregory, those big forwards, and guys like Shamilka Kurumbula Pitia at the back who played an outstanding game against Kingswood. But look out for teams like Kingswood as well. They are going to be very good in the upcoming weeks. If they sort out the injury issues and discipline issues off broken field and turnover ball, they are going to be pretty much unstoppable. The team that doesn't look like it has much going for it at the moment is St. Anthony's, but that's something that they shouldn't be disheartened by, because they've got coach Theo Seraphim into their lineup, and they've got to realize that results are not going to be overnight for St. Anthony's. They're going to take a season, maybe 2 seasons, to get back into the top flight and be competitive in the top flight. So it's a long rebuilding process for them, and they should not be disheartened by the result against St. Peter's. A difficult game first up, but they will definitely improve as the season goes on, while some teams like maybe Wesley, maybe St. Joseph's might look like they will tire as the season goes on. So that will play a part. Fatigue will play a part as well. So join us next time for our weekly roundup of the schools rugby action. Join us also live on www.TheScore.lk for all these games from the weekend that we'll be bringing. We'll keep you updated on exactly which games will be streamed live. It's a great stream, and you'll get to watch the matches even if you're unable to be at the ground. If you can't travel down from Kandy or wherever you might be, you can watch the games in Colombo and vice versa. So make sure you stay tuned to our weekly updates, and we will be very happy to bring you all the action from the rugby field. Until next week.